Okay, so I don't want to overhype anything or anything like that, even though I think I may possibly be the best Facebook media buyer ever, and good looking, and funny, and humble, and all those great things. But we recently, for a client, just spent $30,000 in ads and made $330,000 back in just 14 days. So what I thought it would be cool is to run through step by step my ad testing strategy and process that allowed us to test multiple different ads, copies, angles, creatives in just a short amount of time, and then spend 30K so profitably. And I've been doing this now for a long time, over 7 years running Facebook ads. And this process is something I've really dialed in over the last couple of years, and now we use it across all of our clients' accounts, and it pretty much just works every single time. So feel free to watch, copy, and deploy for yourself, or be one of those cunts that just watches informational YouTube videos and then does nothing with the info. Whatever pleases you. Okay, so when we first launch a new campaign for a client, we always start targeting and testing different audiences first. This is the first thing that we want to identify before we start really optimizing the copy or creatives or anything like that. The main thing is, how can we test as many different audiences as possible so we know which audiences respond best to our offers. So we typically do that in 2 testing campaigns. One campaign for cold interest, so we'll target multiple different interests inside of one campaign, and they'll all have the same ads inside of them. And we've only got one unique interest in each ad set. Now, the budget that you have to test will obviously determine how many ad sets are in that campaign, but we like to at least test 10 unique interests right from the beginning. And then in a second testing campaign, we have a lookalike testing campaign, which it's the same principle, at least 10 different lookalikes that we are testing, and it's just one lookalike per ad set. And within those ad sets, all of the ads inside of there are identical across the 2 different ad sets, and they're actually identical across the 2 different campaigns. And we run that test for around 3 to 5 days to identify the winning audiences. And then when we test the rest of the stuff, and then when we go to scale later on, we already know what audiences work well. Now, in terms of what are inside those ad sets during the testing campaign, it kind of depends upon what you feel like would work best. So for example, we always want to do like a little mini creative test at the ad level during this time. So the 3 ads that we have inside of the ad set, they could have the same copy, but a different creative. So that means that the copy is identical. So the main copy in the Facebook ad plus the headline, the CTA button, everything's identical. The only thing that's different across the 3 ad sets is the creative. So we could use 3 different images or 3 different videos. We don't typically test videos and images in the same ad set. We've just found that depending on how Facebook is feeling, they will typically spend like most of the budget on a video or an image. And we just feel like when you combine them in the same ad set, Facebook doesn't test them fairly. So we always separate video and static image. Now, this strategy is probably more for e-commerce stores where the actual creative, and in most cases the video, does most of the heavy lifting. For our info product clients, where the actual copy in the ad does most of the heavy lifting, we typically have inside of our testing ad sets different copy and the same creative. So again, the static image that we use will usually be identical in the beginning, and then we'll have 3 different pieces of copy. These will be 3 totally different angles targeting different pain points, desires, or even potentially even avatars. And like I said, we leave this running for about 3 to 5 days. And that's basically the first phase of the testing. The next phase of the testing is what we call creative optimization. So after we've had the first phase run, we kind of have a good idea of what copy and creatives are working well. So say, for example, in this scenario, we had 3 different pieces of copy: ad copy 1, ad copy 2, ad copy 3, and they all use the same image. Let's just say after the initial test that ad copy 2 was performing the best. What we'll do then is create a new creative optimization campaign, and we'll take ad copy 2, the best performing creative, and we'll target the same audiences that we have identified that work during testing phase 1. And we will test that copy with different creatives, and we'll create variations of the creative that worked. So for example, if this image that ad copy 2 worked well with was of a picture of our client, maybe they are stood outside in a garden, it's like a lifestyle photo, then we'll create variations of that. Maybe we'll create one variation where they're inside at their office. Maybe we'll create a different variation where they're outside, but they're in a different setting. And we'll use similar concepts, but we'll try and create slight variations to see if we can optimize it and get better results. And again, depending on the budget, we could create another campaign as well. And we could create ad copy 2, and we could create different variations of ad copy 2, and we'd put it in a new creative optimization campaign. And we'll use the same image that worked well before, but we'll use slightly different pieces of copy. But again, it's only variations. So for ad copy 2, maybe we have a different headline. Maybe we have a different hook at the start of the body copy. Maybe we use the same angle, but there's a slight variation of it. Or maybe ad copy 2 is targeting one pain point of an avatar, and we'll slightly change it to target a different pain point, but the copy structure would stay the same. So here again, it's about optimization. It isn't about trying something completely new. It's about looking at what's working well in phase 1 and just trying to optimize it further to get better results. And then we move on to the third phase of testing, which is called demographic dialing. So at this point, we know what audiences work well. We know what pieces of copy and which angles are working well. We know what types of images are working well, or we know what types of videos are working well. So now we want to really dial it in further by going a bit more specific with our targeting. Now, just so you know, this isn't actually a necessary step, and sometimes we just start scaling after phase 2. But if you've got the budget and you want to test a little bit further, you can start to dial in the demographics. So we basically take our best performing campaigns or the best performing ad sets from phase 1 and 2, and we basically take them and we duplicate them into another testing campaign that is for testing the demographics. So for example, we could have one campaign that tests age ranges, genders, countries, placements, because obviously different demographics will respond differently to certain offers. Now, maybe your offer is very broad and it can attract lots of different types of people, then maybe this isn't as important for you. And obviously, if your product is just for women, for example, then obviously you wouldn't test genders. Just from the very beginning, you would only target women. And obviously, if you're only advertising in the US, then you can't test different countries. So obviously just use a bit of common sense when it comes to the demographics that you test. But let's just say, for example, in our creative optimization page, we had like 5 ad sets that was working incredibly well. It was from a variation of ad copy 2, and it was with the original image. So what we would do then, if that one is a really good performing ad, then we would duplicate it into a new campaign, and then maybe we want to test some age ranges. So we would test maybe like 24 to 35, or if you believe an older demographic would work better, then maybe you could do 45 to 65. So it really just depends on, your offer, your customer, what you think would work well. You can obviously always dive into the analytics of these 2 campaigns. And if this creative optimization campaign was working well, then you can just look at the breakdown inside of the ads manager. And if it's saying most of the cheap leads are coming from an older age range, then obviously that's a good sign to test that age range in its own campaign specifically to see if that converts better. And that's pretty much our strategy. So like I said, we like to test our campaigns from anywhere between 3 to 5 days. So when we generated over 330K from the 30K in ad spend for our client, we had about 14 days to spend the entire budget. So around the first 7 days was pretty much all testing. So we launched the audience identification campaigns, and about 3 to 4 days in, we launched the creative optimization campaigns, and then another couple of days after that, we released the demographic dialing campaigns, and then we were about 7 days in, and then the final 7 days was really about scaling what was working and spending as much money as possible. But even when you start scaling, this process never stops. It's not like you only launch these campaigns one time and that's it. We are constantly pumping more volume and launching more testing campaigns based on the data that we get back, because eventually your scaling campaigns are going to die out. And if you don't have any new campaigns to scale, then obviously you're not going to make any money. So we constantly feed more and more testing campaigns as we continue to scale. So that's when our scaling campaigns, when they die out, we can just look at all of these testing campaigns and be like, oh yeah, we've got like 3 or 4 ad sets in this testing campaign that's working incredibly well. Let's just scale that. Or this creative optimization campaign is working incredibly well right now. Let's scale that. So it's kind of always keeping the ad pipeline full, if you would. So you can always feed your further scaling campaigns. So hope that helped. Thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.